and welcome to Tobisonics. It is Tuesday, March the 30th, 2021. I hope you all had great weekends and the weeks have started well for each and every one of you. In this week's episode, we're going to be looking at some simple production techniques that you can use to add depth, width, and dynamics to your loops. In last week's episode, we used Loop Cloud to put together the core elements of a simple production. And those are the loops that we're going to be using this week. The production techniques that we're going to be using will apply to any set of loops, so you don't need to have seen last week's episode. But if you haven't and you feel like watching it, there's a link on screen for it right now. I'm going to be taking this and turning it into this. Before we get into it, if you could just take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel, that would be a big help. Thank you for taking the time. Let's start off with a bit of a confession on my part. My intention was to do this all in one video, but I kind of got my producer thing on, I went into a lot of detail, and when it came to edit it together, it was pretty obvious it was going to be far too long. So I've split it into two parts. Part one is bass, kick, and snare. Part two is hi-hats and synth. I'll upload part two for next week's episode. Right now, let's get on with part one. Here we have the bass loop as it came in from Loop Cloud. We've got a couple of simple effects lined up. Let's see what we can do with them. First up, the DMG track control. What have we got going on? Well, we've got a little bit of gain in here. We're just adding about a dB of gain. The bass line was just slightly to the left, so I'm using the balance control, 10%, just pushing it center. And then we've got the width control. What's that doing? That's taking all of the signal, the stereo signal, and just squeezing it a touch. And then we're reducing the pan side by 63%. So that's actually just taking that side information, that side audio, and dropping it down. I don't want to lose it completely. If you take it all out, you'll make the bass sound too small. Next up, we've got the tried and true FabFilter Pro Q3, and we're doing very simple stuff with it. We've got it set on a linear phase setting, and then we're high passing at an F-sharp 0, 23 Hertz, just taking out some of those real low subs. And then at the top, we're just smoothing things out, F-sharp 10, around 23.5 K. Let's start up the raw bass loop again, and then I'm going to drop in the effects one after another, starting with the DMG track control and then the FabFilter Pro Q. But we're still not finished with the bass line. When I drop the bass loop into Cubase, I also use Loop Cloud to create two dubs, one that's an octave down and one that's an octave up. Right now, both the octave down and the octave up bass dubs are muted. Let's have a quick look at what we're doing with them, our old friend, the Pro Q. So on our octave down, you can see we're high passing at F-sharp -1, and then we're low passing at F-sharp 1. So we're taking a very small area. We just want those subs. And then on our octave up, we've got another Pro Q, and you can see that we're high passing C-sharp 5, and we're low passing at F-sharp 10. And this is just giving us a little bit of top, just to help that bass line have some fizz and some energy, help it sit up in the mix. Next up, let's take a listen to the kick and snare pattern. So here we go, we've got it going on. This is just the raw loop. And as you can see, we've got our good old friends, the DMG track and the Pro Q3. So let's have a quick run through what we're doing. The first thing you'll notice is we're using the DMG to bring the volume down by about 6 dB. Why are we doing that? Well, because I like to normalize all my tracks to minus about 4 dB. Gives me a little bit of headroom to work with. We're doing a little bit of rebalancing. I really like this balance control, just setting it center. Over to the Pro Q, natural phase this time. We're high passing at C#1, so a little bit higher than that bass line. We're low passing at C#10, and then we've got a little bit of dynamic EQ at F4. Let's do what we did with the bass line. We'll kick the drums off again, just the standard dry loop, and then I'll bring in the track control and then the Pro Q so you guys can hear the difference. Again, like the bass, we still haven't finished with a kick and snare. Just like I did with the bass, I also got Loop Cloud to create an octave down and an octave up. Like we did with the low bass dub, we're just using C#0 to C#1. We've just got an octave there, just the sub. And by doing that, we're just adding low to the kick. And then here we go for the high octave. Again, we've got some pretty aggressive high passing going on. We're at F#6 all the way up to C#10, and that's getting a little bit of the top of the kick. We just want to get a little bit more definition on that kick, and it's getting quite a bit of the top of that snare. So it's just helping to get the kick and snare to sit up in the production. But we still haven't finished with the kick and snare. It could do with a little bit more depth to it. So let's see if we can add some reverbs. What I've done here is I've duplicated the high kick snare dub. I've duplicated it twice. And then I've done some real simple editing. On the first version, I've cut out all the snares, so all we've got left are the kicks. And on the second, yeah, you've guessed it, I've cut out all the kicks, and all we've got left is the snares. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to send the kick and the snare out to 2 different reverbs. So first up, we've got our kick, and that's being sent out to east-west spaces, big drum room, with a pre-delay of 48.4 milliseconds, which is a pretty standard size room. Then we've got our snare, and that's being sent out again to east-west spaces, but this time we've got a digital classic rock plate, and again we've got the same pre-delay, 48.4 milliseconds. Here we have the bass, kick, and snare running as they came in, raw loops from Loop Cloud. Let's run through everything we've done so far. I'll bring them in one at a time so you can hear the difference. It only takes a few simple production techniques to bring that little bit of extra width, depth, and dynamics to the bass, kick, and snare. Everything we've done here today in this video would apply to any set of loops. You could do it in any DAW, and you could do it with any number of similar plugins and get exactly the same results. That's the end of part 1. In part 2, we'll be taking a look at the hi-hats and the synth, That's coming up next week. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Thank you for taking the time. My new single, Eye of the Storm, is out right now on all platforms. If you have any questions about the production or any questions about what we did today, feel free to leave them in the comments below or contact me via social media at Tobisonics. Thank you for watching, and until next Tuesday, good night and good noise, stay safe and stay healthy.